Thanks to the pandemic and the push to get stimulus payments out quickly, the IRS announced that tax season is starting later this year. The agency will begin accepting and processing your 2020 return on February 12th, more than 2 weeks later than last year. I talked about this and other changes today with IRS spokesman Rafael Tolino. Rafael, it's good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always. Glad to be here.
Let's start by talking about the $600 stimulus checks that are going out to millions of Americans right now. How is the process going so far?
Well, for the most part, that law enacted on December 27 had us sending those out just before the New Year's weekend in terms of the direct deposit. So more than 100 million of those have already gone out. The rest of the month here, as we get near it, the end of it, I should say, will be the checks that are going out each week. And the debit cards as well. So the mailings, the actual physical mailings through the end of the month. But the bottom line is this: if you don't get it, then you have a chance to do so as a recovery rebate credit on a 2020 federal income tax return. It's a RRC for short. And that's the spot where you can recover, if you will, if you didn't get either one of those payments in full or at all on a tax return. So even though the economic impact payments are coming out, we still have a chance to get those on a tax return if you don't receive the full amount of one or the other from last year. I hope that made sense.
Is there anything different, Rafael, about the effort to get these checks out to Americans compared to the first one from the CARES Act from last year?
No, the speed was just as fast. We had those out in a matter of days, about a couple of weeks to the end of the month here, and then we have to turn over and begin a tax filing season. So we'll start processing tax returns on February 12th. And we need that extra time when normally we'd start processing probably this week or next. But to get everything right and programmed, it's a massive undertaking to do one and then the other, and to do them back to back. We need just that extra time to make sure we're getting everything right and tax refunds aren't delayed and all that.
How long is the overall process expected to take, and how long should someone wait for their check before they call to ask where it is, and how can they check on it?
Well, if you're talking about the economic impact payment, it's irs.gov, get my payment. Direct deposits should be in tens of millions of accounts already. You can check the status of your checks. I get my payment, irs.gov is the best spot. And like I say, if that doesn't give you information or you don't get the full amount, then you're going to put it on a 2020 federal income tax return, which you'll begin to file right around now. But we won't process until February 12th, but that's your spot to get the backstop, if you will, if that makes sense.
Speaking of the upcoming tax season, how is it being handled during the pandemic, and what do tax filers need to know this year?
Well, the same thing. Speaking of the pandemic and filing, one of the things I guess is really important is to get to a computer and choose a paperless return more than ever. About 90% of us do so anyway. But this year, if you look back to last year, for this year, I should say, we had refund delays, tax refund delays. A lot of folks who filed by paper, a lot of that was shut down in terms of the campuses around the country for several weeks due to COVID-19 because IRS employees were affected as well. So do a paperless return and get to a computer and hit enter. The other thing you might consider is some tax planning. You don't have to get that refund at all. You can have your money in your own pocket throughout the year. And when you file, it's a reconciliation. Most people get a refund, but some tax planning may be beneficial.
And I'm curious, Rafael, how is the IRS dealing with fraud regarding these stimulus payments? What do people need to be on the lookout for?
Yeah, we're definitely doing that too. And that's why sometimes things can take a little bit longer behind the scenes in terms of tax refunds and that kind of thing. But that's priority number one is to not let $1 fraudulent go out the door. So a lot of filters and screens and detectors there that might slow down legitimate refunds or returns getting back to people, but it's for a good cause and for a good purpose.
All right. Any other tips that we should hear before we let you go, Rafael?
April 15th is still the deadline this year. No changes there. And under no circumstance are we going to email you, text you, or call you about something out of the blue. Chances are that's a scammer using the IRS as a lure. If you want that information, get it 24/7, irs.gov, your best spot for questions and answers and that kind of thing.
All right, Rafael, it's good to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.